Now that we've created a sample wall cabinet and a base cabinet, we're going to want to bring those onto a 4 by 8 sheet of plywood, and we're going to need to show you. We're going to show you how to make multiple copies and do the tool path. First of all, we're going to open our wall cabinet project that we have started before, and we're going to change the size of our material to 96 by 48 for a full sheet of plywood. Thickness 0.7 will remain the same. XY datum position, everything else will stay the same. Click OK. And the first thing we're going to do is make multiple copies of this. But I noticed something here as we open it up that we want to check something first. When I had us extend the dado rectangles here for the shelves, top and bottom shelves, I think I made a mistake, and instead of redoing that, I want to show you a mistake that often you'll make. You won't find this in other tutorials, and you'll be scratching your head. Well, how did this happen? Let's take a look. First of all, our rabbets, they're there. Our shelf pins are there, but we turn on our shelves and nothing is there. Well, how did this happen? Well, it happened when I was extending the length of the shelf dados, and what I was doing is, if you have everything open, for example, and you start making a change on any one of these layers, if you have, for example, the wall cabinet cutout selected here, any change you make will automatically go to that layer. And you'll find this happening very many times. You'll make a change, and all of a sudden, you'll look for that look and find that it's no longer on that layer. Well, what has happened is what I should have done is when I was making those changes, wall cabinet shelves, if I had made those changes and had this showing right here, the active layer, then everything would have been fine. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select those shelves right here, and I'm going to get them back on the proper layer. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to move to wall cabinet shelves, and notice how they've changed color. So we are good to go. Oh, it doesn't really matter now where we're going to be making our copies, because we're not making any changes. We're just copying. So I'm going to select those sides of the wall cabinet. And I'm going to go down where it says offset and layout. Right here, it says create a linear array of copies. Now what I want to do is, I think we've got a 30-inch cabinet. We have 96-inch piece of plywood that we should be able to get 3 out of that. We had a 24-inch wide on our desktop max. 48. We should be able to get two rows and 3 columns. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to select that. I've got it here, 2 rows, 3 columns, and we're going to put a gap. We want to put a little gap. I think we have plenty of gap on the X, not too much on the Y. So I'm going to put a 1.25 in case we want to put some fasteners in there. If you are doing vacuum hold down, this is not going to be necessary. But if you're screwing this piece down, especially with some of the plywood that you get that's imported, it has a tendency to warp and lift up if you don't have some screws in the center. So I'm going to click copy here, and let's see, right, we've got there. I think we can get this centered. So let's close this first. And while everything is selected, I'm going to go down where it says Align Objects. I'm going to center in material. And right there, I'm going to check my measuring tape. And I think I should have plenty right there to the edge. 1 3/8 of an inch almost. So we're good shape and all this. So if I wanted to put screws at these locations, I can do that. But for you three teachers that have the vacuum hold down, this is not going to be. You're not going to need to screw this to your table. So now that we've got everything laid out, we're going to go over to switch to toolpath tab. Okay, and we're going to start selecting the different layers and determine what we want to do with them. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go down to where the bottom layer, which says layers there, bottom tab, and we want to only have the shelf pin tab visible right now. Now all I have to do now is I'm going to create a drilling toolpath. And the depth for these shelf pins is going to be 3/8 of an inch, 0.375. We're going to use the 1/4 inch down cut 57-10. We're going to leave those feed rate and plunge rate. That is not as critical as when we're doing cutouts and pocketing. And we are going to rename it. And we're going to put it shelf pin drilling. We're going to calculate that. We don't have the vector selected yet, so we're going to draw a rectangle around that. And we're going to calculate that. And now we'll preview selected toolpath. Now that the color there, and my favorite color is usually this brown up there. It shows the best contrast. Okay, so our shelf pin holes have been done. Now we're going to go back over here to, this is the 3D view. We're going back to the 2D view, go to our layers, take off the shelf pin. Now we're going to go to our shelves. And we're going to click over here, that will close. I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to open up a pocketing toolpath. And we're going to select those. But before we do that, we need to select the bit that we want to use. And we're going to be selecting that 5710. Now I've got it already set up for this project, but let's say we wanted to, what is going to be the optimal cutting speed for this bit. So if you go down here, 5710, click on that. It's the ShopBot starter set, pass depth, 1/4 inch. You usually do not want to exceed 1.5 inch, 1.5 times the diameter of the bit. We'll be on the conservative side and put 0.25. And we have the spindle speed, feed rate, and plunge rate we're concerned about. Now, if you are manually adjusting your spindle, like for example in a desktop Max, or if you had a Porter cable router, you'll be setting that speed up manually. But your PRS alphas with speed control will automatically adjust the RPM to whatever you have here. So we want to find out what's going to be the best. So what we're going to be doing here, I'm just going to cancel this for just a second. Once we hit cancel, we're back in our pocket toolpath tab. We're going to go ahead and minimize the VCarve Pro. And in each certification curriculum, there is a folder that says extra info by topic. If you open that up and you select router bits, and then go down where you get the feeds and speeds charts, you will open up a chart that will have the feed rate and chip load for the bits that come with your ShopBot starter kit. So we're going to go ahead and minimize this. So let's assume that you've opened this up already. And right here, the bit that we're using is 57-910 downcut carbide 1/4 inch. It says it's assuming that you're going 1 times the diameter. Since we're set it at 0.25, that's correct. And here we have number of flutes 2, chip load, and it also has a suggested feed rate. But what we're going to do here is in each one of the command console under tools, there's a handy little calculator called a chip load calculator. And we're going to go ahead and bring that up here. And we want to determine what the cutting speed, the router speed is, if we're going to be doing a chip load of 0.008 to the middle inches per second for the leading edge there, 0.008. We have two flutes. We're going to set the cut speed at 3 1/4 inches per second. Then we calculate. That's going to tell us what we should set our spindle router RPM at. If we are going at only 3 inches a second, we'd be about 11,000. So we'll go ahead and decide since we're going to be doing a lot of cutting on the cabinet, we'll leave it at 3 1/4, calculate 12,000 RPM. Should be our router. So that's how you would use, for example, the chip load calculator. Now we're going to go back to our file there, and so we're going to select this bit. Go here to our 910 1/4 inch. We're going to set the feed rate at 3 inches per second. We'll leave the plunge rate we put at 1 inch per second. And remember, our spindle speed was going to be at around 12,000 RPM. And we're going to click apply. And so anytime we open and look for that bit, that's going to be what it's going to be set to. Click OK. And we're going to pocket depth on this. Well, first of all, we're only going to go 0.12 because we're going to want to use pocket screws to fasten that shelf in, and along with some glue. And if you use 0.12, you can still use an 1 1/4 pocket screw. You just have to adjust the collar to about 5/8. So I'm going to select all those shelf dado cuts. We're going to click ramp moves, and we'll go a 3-inch ramp, easier on the bit. And we're going to give it this a name as shelf dado. And calculate and preview that selected toolpath. There we go. Go back to our 2D view. Go back to our layers, and we're going to now go to our wall cabinet back, the Rabbet. Close this, and now we're going to go again back into pocket, and this time we're going to go to 0.5 because we want enough gluing area and stapling area to staple that 1/4 inch backing sheet on there. We'll select our tool, and notice everything, the changes we made are right there, so all we have to do is click OK. We're going to put back Rabbet, and we're going to select everything by a rectangle around that and calculate, and then we'll preview selected toolpath, and there we go. Now, the last thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to do our cutout. So we'll select our cabinet cutout, our 2D view. This time we're going to, instead of a pocketing, we're going to go with a profile toolpath because we're going to be cutting that out. And the thickness of plywood is about 0.70. We're going to go just slightly more. We can go 0.71 or 0.715 to make sure that we're going to be cutting through that plywood. Bit was going to be the same bit. Notice that's again, if we go back to the 5710 right there, it's the correct feed rate, spindle rate, and everything has been set. We'll click OK. Outside, we want to cut on the outside, very important. We're going to ramp plunge move 3 inches for the ramp. And now we're going to select everything right here, draw a rectangle around that. Notice how it's been selected. Okay. And we wanted to click Show Advanced Toolpath Options at the top. This is a good thing always to have checked. And so what we want to do is we want to, we've already selected ramps. We add ramps 3 inches per second. Now we're going to add some tabs, because even though you're going to be using a vacuum hold down system, these wall shelves will be no problem for the vacuum to hold down. But these pieces in between here, when they are cut loose, the vacuum will probably not be holding that down well enough. So we're going to put some tabs on each one of those, just to keep them from getting loose and jamming the bit. So we're going to go add tabs. We're going to click 1 inch tab, and we're going to do a thickness 0.1. And we're going to create 3D tabs. Those are easier to cut. And we're going to edit tabs. Now we could do a constant number, and that would probably be the easiest way to do that. Let's just see what happens though. And unfortunately, we have some tabs not in the right place. Those are okay. Starting, I guess, right there. See, it's placed it across there, right in the corners there, across from each other. Well, let's see how this looks. Okay, makes it a lot easier to try to do it all manually. So we're going to go over here, close, and we're going to name this wall 30 cutout. And notice the 3D tabs that we've created go up, like ramp up, ramp down. It's easier to cut those and easier to cut them out. So we're going to click yes, it's going to cut through the material. And now we're going to preview selected toolpath. And this looks pretty good. So all you'd have to do is cut those corners out with a jigsaw and use a router bit to trim that off. And this is good to cut. So right here you have enough to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wall cabinets. All you have to do is cut your shelves. We're going to close this, and we're going to go File. And again, I should have done this earlier. We're going to go Save As, because we don't want to. We want to keep the original, and we're going to put wall cabinet 30 full sheet, and we're going to save that. So now that is good. And so if you're doing a 30-inch wall cabinet, all you have to do is load this file up, run it, and you're good, and you are good to go. Thank you. Now that we've got that done, we want to save those toolpaths. And so we're going to click on our Save button right there. And fortunately, we can group those to all one file. I'll put all these little toolpaths to one file. We're going to select each one of them. And normally, you'll always want to have the cutout as the last file in the order. Since we're using the same bit, it's just a matter of placing that sheet on there and running this file. So we're going to save this toolpath file, and you can save it to your to the desktop. You can save it to where you want to save it. And wall cabinet 30 full sheet shop part file. We're going to go ahead and save that, and that's going to be ready to run. So now you're good to go on this project.